This was a precognitive remote viewing session for October 2024 with tasking that only allowed one news story at a time until data completion for each event occurred. Moreover, I only asked to view events that had the highest probability with worldwide exposure, to each story being a secondary part to the tasking, and used the Betty Erickson self-hypnosis technique to further reinforce these parameters as my cooldown set aside prior to the session. This video will be uploaded as unlisted first, intentionally, as I want there to be no chance for any outside interference regarding forces repelling Ukraine from any mission that promotes their nation's freedom. If you're seeing this once I've changed the video to public and want evidential proof that this video and session subsequently occurred and was produced prior to October 2024, check the upload date for reference. The ideogram for this felt dark, morose, very, very bad, and dipped straight down at the end, which typically symbolizes mass death, as it also symbolized at the end of my ideogram for the Exxon Valdez disaster when remote viewed. Starting out, the location of Event 1 was described as being orange, brown, hot to the touch, and possibly a desert. Next stop on the ideogram for the first event produced a sudden energetic quality that was unexpectedly sudden, and then nothing. I saw people peacefully gathered in a square-shaped patch of green land like a public park just prior to the event, and without warning, a sudden movement of land occurs, which at first I thought might be an avalanche, but I later felt this data was blurring with the white missiles of event number 2. So instead, I began to get data of a landslide, but more specifically a mudslide that had a quote-unquote before and after quality, in that once it happened, it had expended all of its potential and kinetic energy and couldn't be reversed. I then moved into embodying a witness to this event, and upon reviewing their own memories, saw an overwhelming amount of orange and brown, orange mud with cracking in it that was still slightly damp. This was a mudslide, or landslide, and I felt like its location was in Africa or South America. Primarily, rain had led to this, but this event itself was not expected. I witnessed in memories of people who were there a deluge of muddy water knocking over trees from the mudslide in a forested area. The skin color of those I embodied was African in color and tone. These people had a tribal feel, like pure African. This mudslide snapped trees like toothpicks as it moves from an elevated area down and out, much like an expanding semicircle. The second event first came to me in an extended remote viewing session where I witnessed a volley of white missiles and rockets hitting a rotunda or a circular building. When I researched the types of missiles currently used by both Russian and Ukrainian forces, it appears the most common current white missiles I saw are right now being used by Ukrainian forces and are called quote-unquote ATA-CMS. I could only find 3 circular buildings in Russia, and the one that resonated the most with the strike that I saw with me emotionally was called the Plashad Vostanaya station in St. Petersburg metro area of Russia. I feel it was this building, as it looked similar to the Rotunda building in Washington as the volley of white missiles struck it. The third event began while embodying a child and reviewing its memories of the next incident on the ideogram. The child's memory began with a surge of adrenaline that I physically felt in my body. I felt an impact wave, a shock. My heart, literally in my own body, started racing. I then viewed missiles airstrike. I saw a longer, taller white missile with a stripe or stripes on it near the top third of it that stood out in stark contrast to the overall white color of the rest of the missile's outer painted surface. Then after seeing a lone fighter take to the skies from land, it joined up with 2 more jets, joining in formation over land in a triangle formation just before the sunset, with orange on the horizon. Unfortunately, there are numerous fatalities and deaths. This was a bombing or airstrike of some kind, and the people that were struck did not have much cover and did not have much warning. The city is metro, with trees here and there. It felt a bit run down, though not third worldly, more like, I don't know, just different from the US. So I immediately looked for landmarks to try to identify the where of this. I saw a tower with black windows that followed kind of a vertical striping pattern in nature, and the top of the building with a slice diagonally taken out of it. Sort of think of stacking a stick of butter on its end that's warm, and then taking a knife and just cutting a diagonal swath from the top edge of it down and to the right, perhaps. This may be located in the Moscow International Business Center and appears to be of a somewhat match either to the Federation Tower or the Mercury City Tower. Additional buildings asked for reference were a central public square with large earthen natural rectangular blocks in a square shape, then a circle shape within it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything that resembled this in Moscow's Red Square, so I don't know what this could be. The only auditory I received in this session was the word Ukraine directly after seeing these landmarks, so it was a bit confusing. Based on the data so far, I would suppose that Ukraine is the force bombing this area with the landmarks. Moving right along to key strategic targets. One of three is a square with a hole in the center of it. This was how the data packet came in, and later looked to be a rectangular building, square top with an antenna or spire, and circular feature around the building. The building does have radio or communications / telecom technology associated with it. Target 2, flat, low building with a slightly sloped rooftop. It had a raised metal roof. It had a center line along the roof, down the middle of it, that was the highest point, and on either side of it, it winged down slightly. This felt military or industrial, like a factory, specifically housing numerous vehicles that are brown and or green. Finally, target 3, tactical target 3, smaller footprint of land, harder to hit, targeting a man in the structure. Building is like a rocket, but small. Tall and skinny, but low to the ground. The only building I found that is similar to this is the Ostankino Tower, or the much, much taller Lakhta Center, Lakhta. However, Ostankino is the only one with radio / television capabilities currently to date. The person in this building is serious. All business, military, disciplined, regimented, unforgiving, bordering on sociopathic. The most data I felt from them was that their face had a thick build, Caucasian skin tone. I saw them with short, curly gray hair, big, round cheeks that were kind of jolly, had a Scandinavian, Russian, Ukrainian feature, a large man, large build with a big, large face and a big head. Upon subsequent review, this appears to be a major Ukrainian general named Valery Zaluzny. Interestingly, this general was changed to a different general in February of this year. Why an airstrike done by Ukraine against this general would occur makes no sense to me, and is something I can't seem to understand. However, the feeling of a connection between him and the bombing target itself in the short tower is strong. So perhaps this was a strategy proposed by him prior to stepping down, or maybe I'm just 100% wrong. Hopefully I'm just wrong. Fighters take one pass over, then leave the bombing site. Then sunset occurs. This strike happens just prior to sunset. The city is mostly intact after the airstrike, but the areas that were hit are smoking and burning. This was a surgical strike. The fighter jet emblem on the side, strong impulse of red and yellow or orange with some sort of a circular shape in nature. Red was the strongest feel to this, then the orange. It had sharp edges to it, possibly a star shape or lacy pattern around the outside. At this time, I feel I saw the Ukrainian Air Force symbol, albeit the colors were inverted in my mind, and I was AOLing the Russian Red Star Air Force symbol like crazy. However, in hindsight, I'm going to say that it was the Ukrainian symbol, as the red and yellow with sharp edges that protruded like a star were the most prominent features. When asking if there were any regrets that I would have not reporting, immediately I was brought to the chubby cheek man, who is a high-ranking military officer. He looks jolly, but his demeanor is very different. When I was researching him, apparently they used to call him the Iron General. To summarize and finish up here, there's 3 strikes. Now, I don't know of the 3 that I gave you which was the priority, but there was a first target as a priority. And the thinking was if we can get the first one, it's worth the most, even if we don't get the other 2. So don't miss the first target. It's critical to knock out communication. This is part of a larger daisy chain tactical plan with numerous events. And then going back to the mudslide event 1, finishing out, I saw big Vietnam-like soldier troop, carrier trucks, diesel, heavy engine trucks, the kind that have like the bent poles on the back with the tarp over them that you always see in old war movies. So they were like those, and they were just driving. It was like a convoy of them, all driving in one direction, bringing something, I would imagine supplies, to this displaced, devastated region after the mudslide. So that's my summary. Following this is the actual audio of my session itself. I hope none of this comes to pass, but we'll see. Thank you. Target, October, News 2024. Only one piece of news until completion. This piece of news will be the most probable news to occur and the most impactful. Target, Oct. 2004. So this has an ideogram that goes diagonally down and to the right. Has a very dark feel to it, very morose, very bad. And there's a complete drop off at the end of the ideogram where it was going diagonally before and now it's just juts straight down. So beginning at the beginning part of the ideogram, probing for literal data only, I'm getting visual orange-brown in color. It is hot to the touch. This feels like a location, like it's sand, like desert sand. Moving on to the next part of the ideogram, beyond the sand. This has a energetic quality to it. There's like nothing, 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 and then all of a sudden take off with energy. It's like a lift off of energy and then back down. So you can't see this, but I'm grabbing this section of the ideogram, pulling it towards me, expanding it to slow down time on it, because this blip, there's a lot in it, but it comes across with just a tiny little blip. So let me open it. It's hard because the other night I was probing in ERV state for October news. I saw a volley of white missiles or rockets slamming into a rotunda, a round circular structure. My mind wants to say that that's this, but I'm just going to claim AOL rockets. For a moment there on the back half of this peak on the left side of it, just before it hits the highest point, there was I saw a flash of a patch of grass, like a square shape. I'm trying to zoom into that. I feel like this is an open area, a peaceful area, like a common area with grass that's evenly cut, sort of like a park or a square. It's very peaceful here. It's so peaceful just before this, it's literally almost at the top of the peak, and just a moment later there's the energetic, so I don't know if it's because of the peak shape, but my mind is showing me like a mountain top with snow on the top third. Like this energetic event has to do with this snowy peak. So I'm going to rest at the peak of it for a moment on the ideogram. Yeah, so this is a before and after event. Before it occurs, there's not much notice or warning, and then after it occurs, it's something that can't be changed or reversed. Just to get this out of my head, I'm an AOL avalanche or landslide. This feels natural. This feels like it is cold to the touch. It feels like ice. I'm going to go forward now to the right side base of the peak, and the event is over. There's a sense of relief that it stopped. There's something to the way that it stopped. Now that this energy has been released, there's no more potential energy that would turn into kinetic energy. Stopped. I'd like to go now into the mind of anyone who's witnessed the entire event and have them show me what they saw. So I feel like there's a life form here on the side of my division, pulling them closer. What happens here? An overwhelming sense of orange and brown. I'm just going to wait until this becomes less fuzzy and kind of goes more into focus. So I got a micro flash of what looks like orange-colored mud, the cracks and striations that you get in mud that dries slightly. Like it's still a little bit damp, but there's cracking in it on this mud in this orangey kind of color. This feels like a landslide, like a rain and then a landslide, and based on the color of the dirt in the mud, it feels far away from the US. It feels like a country like Africa or South America. Yeah, it feels like it rained here, which led to this. Ask a different life form that witnessed this net form. Hello, I'm part of your own, so I want to rewind and play clearly and in focus the highlights of what occurred here. Seeing a deluge of water with trees being knocked down and over as the water and the mud spreads. Sorry for your loss. These people feel like their skin color is not Caucasian. They seem like a darker colored skin, perhaps African American. These people that I'm asking their memories of feel different, normal, everyday people. They feel almost tribal, like straight up African. Anything else? Any children that witnessed this that I can embody? Bit further away in my field. Hello, I'm part of your subconscious, I'm part of you. And now, without harming you in any way, I'd like to rewatch everything that you witnessed, the key points that you saw in detail, in hopes that this helps bring you some sort of and me information. A pounding in my chest, a surge of adrenaline, something going across the sky, from the left side of my field of vision to my sudden impact wave and shock and intense fear. My heart is just racing. This feels like an airstrike or a AOL missile strike. Letting go of that now, on to the next part of the video, just after the base of the peak. Got a quick visual of a fighter jet in the air with non-US markings on the wing. I feel like there are stripes on the wing. Odd colors, like colors you don't often see on aircraft, like stripes of deep red or brown or deep green. There's two of them. They may be on both wings, but I'm just seeing the one wing. This is a flat gray colored fighter jet that appears to be taking off. Let me zoom in. This feels like a separate event now. I feel like the first event has been complete, and so to summarize that, I'll say it felt like It was interesting too because it kind of blended and merged into the second one, but the first one felt like outdoors during heavy rain, which caused rivers to swell and flood with huge mud, like wave of mud that just slid across land and knocked over trees. And what was horrible about it is that it's heavier than water because it's got dirt in it, so it's got a lot of momentum, like a train. Think of like the power of a train in the shape of a semicircle, cascading down from a higher elevation across land and just snapping trees like they're toothpicks in its wake. And this feels like a forested area, very much in a place like southern, I think that's, God, my geography is terrible, southern hemisphere, like Africa or Brazil. And there are locals that are affected by this, like directly displaced, probably some deaths as well, unfortunately. That's the first piece of news. So then I'm going to keep going into the second, which began with a volley of missiles, a fighter jet with the 2 strips painted on the wing. So as I move forward on the ideogram, I'm seeing 1 fighter jet meet up with the rest of its squadron. There's at least 2 more, and they're flying in formation. It's a triangle formation. 1 in the lead and the 2 behind, and just to the sides a little bit, kind of diagonal to the first one. Where they're flying, the sun is either just rising or just setting. There's cloud cover, and the gap in the horizon between the clouds and the land is thin and has a soft orange yellowish color. This feels more like the sun is setting. I can hear them talking to each other over their like intercom system or mics. As I drag my finger along the ideogram line, I'm literally watching the first jet meet up with the other 2 off in the distance. I'm literally just watching them fly off towards the horizon. Oh, okay, something happens here. There is a data packet here at this section of the video. Reminds me of a hay bale, but where there's straw, the straw is replaced with flesh, open wounded flesh, and it's all bunched up together. It's like a hay bale of pain and death. Go ahead and show this data packet. So this is an airstrike from the jets, and I see them just bombing something below them. The people are caught off guard below, and it's just a free-for-all. There's not much cover. The details of the city from above, it is a metropolitan area, but there are trees here and there. It's not a third world city, but it does feel a bit run down and a bit poorer, and the people below there's just no hope for them. Let me see if I can find any landmarks. I do see a tower with sort of black striping that goes vertical up it, and the rest of it is silver in color. Interesting that it's like black windows, but they're vertical. It's like they're like solid lines or stripes going up the building, at least on one side. Let me go all the way around it. There's something odd about the top of the building. It's not perfectly symmetrical or flat. It's as if you took a stick of butter, sat it on its end up and down, like a rectangular stick of butter, and you took a knife and cut diagonally from the top of one of the corners, swathed it down the side. There's a section of the building that's like architecturally designed this way. This is the landmark for the city that is siege, under attack. Is there more that I can use to identify? Being shown a central square, some sort of decorative features with this public square where there are large earthen stone. They kind of remind me of megalithic rectangular blocks. They're not though, but they're these large, very natural looking sort of stone square shape. And then inside the square is a circular shape, possibly a fountain or a walking area for this city. There's a circle within a square. I did just hear the word Ukraine, but this could be an AOL. I keep probing the ideogram. This is a strategic aerial event where the jets fire upon the ground. I feel like there are key targets here. Let me start with one of the 3. First one, I'm seeing a shape like a square with a hole in it, in the center of it. I'm directly above the building. It is a rectangular building, a square top, and something in the center of it like an antenna or spire. You know how architects will add a little flourish and they'll have like a sharp pokey thing in the center of a building that goes up, up, up. It has that, and there's some sort of a circular rotunda or circular wall or circular architectural feature around this tallish rectangular building. This is a target, specifically radio capability for this building that is being knocked out, because I'm being shown that center spire as some sort of communications function or telecom radio kind of receiver sender technology. It's target 1. Let's move to the next target. Flat building, very slightly sloped rooftop, and a V-shaped roof. Center line of the roof is slightly higher than the edges. It's not a tin roof, but it feels like a metal roof. The building itself Takes up a very big square footage, but it's not very tall. It's wide and long. Feels industrial or military. More about this space. Feels like a factory or storage hub for vehicles. The color of the vehicles vary between a boring drab brown and a green color. Third target is much smaller footprint of light. It's a slightly harder target to hit accurately because it's so small. It feels like it's targeting a life form at this location. See the life form like a shadow walking around in this building and targeting this small structure. It's not about the structure, it's about the person inside the building that they're trying to knock out. The building itself feels really small, almost tent-sized, and it's shaped sort of like a pup tent. If you took a rocket ship and just draped a huge tarp over it. It's like really tall and skinny, but also low to the ground. And the person within that space is just like a shadow. They're very, very dark in color. I'd like to embody them for a very serious, all business. They feel military. It is very disciplined, analytical, unforgiving, bordering on sociopathic to see their face. The face looks like a sort of thick build, somewhat overweight perhaps, gray hair, Caucasian face. There's kind of big round cheeks, light colored skin, short curly gray hair. And they have a slight Scandinavian or Russian or like Ukrainian or that region kind of facial features and structure. But this would be a bigger gentleman with short curly white hair that is a big face and like a big head. Keep going on the ideogram. I think we're getting close to the end. So those fighters take one pass over this city, do their damage, a second return. And as I'm at the end of the ideogram, I'm seeing the sun setting. The day is done. Everything sort of fades into darkness. But before I end it, I want to move to the optimum above the city that was bombed or missiled. I do see fires, I see smoke. It's very strategic, this tactical event. There are sections of the city that are unharmed, but the ones that were harmed were surgically hit. Go back to the fighter jet. I want to look at that in detail. Let's get some identification. Show me in detail one of these fighter jets. An emblem on the side top of it. Colors of red, some yellow, possibly dark yellow, bordering on orange. There's a circular shape. It's like two circles. It's like a red inner circle and then that like orangey yellow circle on the outside, but then there's like some sort of sharp edges to it, like a star around it, or like this sort of like lacy pattern around it. Yeah, that is a star. Is there anything at this time would like to move to seeing clearly? Anything I would regret not reporting literally about this target? I feel like the man, the chubby-cheeked guy, is a high-ranking military officer. His uniform is a dark green color. He's decorated. What's interesting about his face is that he looks like he'd be a jolly man, but his demeanor is terrible. Like if I saw him on the street and didn't know anything about him, or if he happened to be smiling, he'd look like a very jolly, kind person, but he's very much not. Okay, anything else I would regret not revealing about this target? I'm getting one last data pack here. It's like 3 flat square shapes. One is thicker than the next, the third one, which is the thickest. This is a data packet, something to do with tactical need. It feels like these are priorities. At all costs, the first of 3 targets must be hit. Second priority is another target, and then third priority is a third. If you can do all 3, great, but don't miss the first one, even if it means like you were to miss the first and hit the other 2. The first one is the most important. It's critical. There's a plan here about knocking out communication. This region or the city is part of a larger plan, a daisy of tactical events by this nation that has a star side of it or else about the first that I would regret not reporting on. I just see big trucks like the kind that were in Vietnam driving, moving supplies in and out of regions. And again, I'm seeing people whose faces resemble people in Africa. I'm going to end it here because my cat is freaking out and wants into the room. Thanks, guys.